Jennifer Kite-Powell, the host of this show you're listening to right now of Tiny Little Victories podcast. Thank you so much for coming back today. And I want to talk to you guys today about emotions and how companies and brands are using your emotions to market to you and to connect to you. To be honest, sometimes I think this is pretty evil. Like, we're so gullible. I think a robot would be like, I don't think so. Stop marketing to me. But humans, nope, we are totally guided by our emotions. That being said, I do think our next guest, Rosa Schmidt, who is the founder of the communications and story agency called DEFAM in London, talks about emotional communications in terms of being more connected to people around issues that matter. And that would be climate change or sustainability, poverty, food security. I mean, come on, let's face it. This is way more important than buying an Apple phone, right? They are things that connect us. There's the subjective experience to things, there's the physiological response with emotion, and then behaviors. I think this is sort of where I feel like a robot would learn better and not be as emotional. Although, technically, if you really watch an old Battlestar Galactica episode, those Cylons are pretty emotional, which, just goes to show even robots can be emotional. So sit back, kick back, take a little cocktail, and enjoy this next guest with Rosa Schmidt. Rosa, I'm so glad that you could take the time to be here today on Tiny Little Victories. So here you are, finally.
It's my pleasure. Finally, I have to say, I've been looking forward to this for the last couple of weeks. I'm excited what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, me too. You know what? I really have to say, just to tell everybody out there, Rosa and I have had many conversations over time about everything, really. Emotional branding, the environment, like who you are in the world, like how do you repurpose your emotions, how you got here. And I love that you're here because the first thing I want to ask you about is this boxing thing that you're doing. So you're a Thai boxer, but you left and went to Thailand to learn how to box. So how did that happen? What got you to that point?
That's a very good question. I mean, as it is always, I guess, or lots of times in life, I think you have to hit rock bottom in order to change something about things, right? And that happened to me I think 2 or 3 years ago with my career. I realized, I was running towards something that really had no goal. I was really, not really knowing where to go and what to do.
Yeah.
And, my body also reacted in many ways. One of them was that I could not use one of my hands anymore. So I had to type only with one hand. I know, crazy. And I decided, okay, I need to quit that job and to do something about that. That was the first thing.
Oh my God, Rosa, can we just talk about when people say the mind, it's mind over matter, it's not. It's literally matter. Like the idea that your body says, you know what? I'm done. And psychologically, emotionally, something's not right, but you just keep going because we have this amazing capacity to fool ourselves. But your hand is like, oh, heck no, we're not going any further.
I was shocked, believe me, myself. And, to see that I feel like I was ignoring my intuition and everything that was also part of my personality, as with all of us. We were not only logic, we're also emotions, again, here coming to repurposing. And I decided to get in touch with that again and confront myself in a lot of ways. And therefore, I decided boxing might be a good idea. A friend of mine was at that camp and said it was amazing. And then I decided, actually, why not? I need to be somewhere else in different space and time and, focus on something that helps me to create resilience. So I decided to do that and broke my toe twice, matter of fact, within these 2 weeks, but still kept going. And it was tough. So that's my story to boxing so far.
I love it. Are you still boxing today?
I still box. I have my third fight in July.
Okay, so I saw a post on LinkedIn, everybody, and we're going to put the notes on how you can follow Rosa because she has the most amazing stories to tell, and I love that about her, is that there's a picture of you coming out of a gym with these gloves on and you're like ecstatic, like you're looking up in the air, you're so happy, and you look absolutely like a sweaty mess, right? And
Hmm.
I love it that you use this content to talk about like repurposing your emotions. But so you're still fighting, and you have a do you fight every month, or is it like every other month? Is
Every
like, and how do you
quarter, you can
determine your
say.
fight? Every quarter, but
So,
are you in like a fighting circle? Like, how does tell us how that works?
When I came back from Thailand after these 3 weeks, I decided to join a London boxing club, which is, doing boxing and kickboxing and Muay
Okay.
Thai and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. And the UK is
Yeah.
actually quite, let's say, advanced when it comes to Muay Thai in comparison to Germany, for example. So I was like, perfect. I live in London, makes all sense. And I decided, like, okay, I have to do that 2 or 3 times, or not have to, but want to do that 2 or 3
Yeah.
times a week, and like, just see if I can, if I like it, apart from Thailand, is it something that I actually want to
Ah.
incorporate into my life, which I did. And they do inter clubs, which is basically cooperating with other gyms. And then there's one day where, people can, I don't know, register, and everyone is kind of fighting against each other, and both opponents get a medal. So it's not like one wins
Yeah.
and loses. It's really just about simulating something. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
it
And
goes.
how were your friends and your partner and your network? Like, were they all supportive of you? Yeah. Did they,
Yeah, I
were they all
mean,
like supportive of you, or they're like, no, don't box?
my girlfriend is still very worried every time I go into the ring or step
Yeah. I
into
was
the
going to
ring,
ask you
because
how she was.
yeah, but she sees the good in it. She sees that I'm way more,
Yeah.
let's say, relaxed, and I need that. I need my, balance somehow. So it's
Yeah.
okay, and everyone else is quite supportive. My mom is
Yeah.
still like gets like, I don't know, heart attacks every time, but all in all, people are supportive for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that you said you're very relaxed when it makes you very relaxed, and boxing is all about strategy, right? It's all about like how you tackle or not tackle something. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, it's a lot like problem solving. So I wanted to ask you, you said earlier, you talked about, emotion, your gut wasn't right, your instinct, your guts were off, like you weren't listening to your intuition. And I think this is a pretty
Yeah.
common problem today because there's a lot of people that talk about it. There's an abstract mathematologist named Dr. Eugenia Chang. She's in London. I think you should go and visit her. And she talks
Mm-hmm.
about how math is solving problems. And the other thing she talks about is how emotions are our only true like barometer of what's going on. And she said,
Mm-hmm.
yet we don't really pay attention to them, right? So here we are talking about math, and here we are talking about emotions, and here we're talking about them feeding each other, which is we tend to speak more linear, right? About emotions. You said emotions and then, intellect. But I think when it comes together, like your example of having to sort of hit rock bottom, you realize that, it's not one or the other. It's both. Um
Yes.
and so you came back, and how, at what point did you decide, now I know what I want to do? And is this where you decided to create your own agency? Is this what led you to get there?
It took a bit longer, to be honest. I had two other companies in my
Oh,
20s now, which kind of never really
yeah.
worked out. I felt it was
Look at
more like
you.
out of
Yeah.
force. Wow, serial entrepreneur. Woo.
Yeah. Ooh. Tick.
Yeah, but like, and kick, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I think it took just some time before that. I felt it was, looking back at it, it was a lot about like forcing something that wasn't there yet, thinking also about my time in Thailand. It took
Mhm.
me time to process all of that and create something valuable for
Mm.
me, and also something that I can offer. So it was a year later, actually, like a couple of months ago, when I started it. And that also came with my work for Constella. So that's my, let's say, regular client,
Okay.
my let's say, yeah,
Yeah.
one and only project, you can say. And through this, I
Yeah.
can draw also lots of inspiration, and that brought me to the
Yeah.
idea to bring emotions and logic somehow together, and show that it's the weapon itself for yourself, and also for your company or the
I
product
love
you
it.
want to build.
Yeah. It's a Absolutely. It's like a superpower basically, because
Mm.
I love the fact that you said it took a year, because I think life doesn't work like a Hollywood film, right? You got an hour
Yeah.
and 40 minutes and everything's perfect. You have a problem, you solve it, you fall in love, you fall out of love, you get back together. Like, but in life, it doesn't work that way. The storytelling is elongated. So the fact that I think that you took time to process. Also, I'm this way when I create stories or when I write a lot. I hear something and then like 6 months later this will just bleh, it'll just come right out of me, right? Because
Mm-hmm. Yes.
you're I think a writer, a storyteller like has to live. They have to experience things in order to come back and create a story. And I know you talk about this a lot. You talk about this storytelling and like the idea that you're creating new terms for your client, Constellar, about like how they're going to talk about themselves is a story. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think the world gets this beautiful concept of storytelling because you are helping a company tell its story, which people can relate to, that human side of all of this technology, blah, 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 right? Why are we constantly disconnecting the emotional and the human from technology?
Don't ask me. That's exactly what I was thinking, like literally an hour before we had the podcast, because I don't get it why we're so scared of being ourselves and like connect somehow. I know truth hurts, if it's in your personal life or if it's in a
Yes.
business decision, as we know, but like
Yeah.
in transparency, in the end, it serves so much more. Like when I can give you an example with boxing or when you do any other sports, strategy is important. You can learn a lot. You can be technically
Yes.
amazing and logically amazing. But when you are in the moment and when it's about, what does success mean? It's all about what's around you and how you feel, how is your opponent. All of these things matter, in order to create success and oh yeah. But to like
Oh yeah.
just cut that out, I think it's just it's not
Yeah.
wise. It's a necessity
Yeah.
to think about that.
Yeah, and I think since we're talking about like emotional branding, emotional communication, I do feel like this is the sweet spot, this like sort of renaissance in a way where we've come so far from technology. And I do think there's a lot of talk of like, AI is going to take our jobs away. And we scream about it as a negative thing, but yet nobody talks about, like you said, like, what is the emotional side of this? We are a complex individual as humans. We are the only species that doesn't learn from its mistakes, right? We keep going and going and going.
So
And
much.
as technology advances, yeah, it's too much, right? I'm just
Mm-hmm.
exhausted by it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I challenge myself like you do with your boxing, which was so inspiring to me, Rosa, is when I get to those moments and I've been down at the bottom, so much that you don't even want to get up out of bed. You're like, what is my purpose? I don't even know that I have one. And slowly pushing yourself. For me, it's the pool. It's swimming, like it's swimming in open water. It's swimming, in a swim team. It's my beekeeping. It's my gardening. And I go and I
Mm-hmm.
stop and I do those things and I can feel my brain resetting. Like I can feel it getting back
Yes.
into the place it needs to be. Part of me wonders if like what you're doing is going to spread and take root in your clients, and as those people are humans, they then take that, what you're giving them, what you're gifting them, this idea to think about the emotional side of technology and creating solutions for a very distraught world right now is going to continue to like be passed on. Do you ever think about that in terms
Oh
of
yeah.
like your contribution? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I love that.
I mean, absolutely. I guess you know for sure. I mean, that sounds maybe confident. I guess you have to be confident these days, because people have no
Yeah.
zero attention span, so you have to leave your mark somehow. Yes, of course. I mean, like I do hope that with like this
Yeah.
storytelling, this way of creating content or like thinking just differently, like it can bring people to a different perspective. Doesn't mean that their perspective is wrong,
Yeah.
but to add something to it,
Exactly.
I do hope that I can do that.
Yeah.
Yes, that would make me
Yeah.
feel joyful. I think that would be pure bliss. I don't know how you feel, Jennifer, if that's also something that you think
I
about in your job. Obviously, yes.
Yeah, all the time, all the time, all the time. It is all the time. And that's why it's so nice to talk about it. And I got to tell you, to the listeners out there, that Max Gulda, who's the CEO of Constellar, was on the podcast last week. And as you remember, he mentioned the woman known as Rosa on the podcast, because he was talking
Mm.
about thermal intelligence. And I want everyone to know and hear this, that reference to thermal intelligence, he said, was created by the person that you're listening to on this podcast, Rosa. So
Yes.
he said you came up with that. And because I had said to him, I love this word and this phrase, thermal intelligence. I love it. People get it. Intelligence is something we all get. And he said, yeah, you created that. But that has allowed him to talk to people differently and to tell their story. Because frankly, to everyone that's listening out there, if we don't make a change right now in how we grow our food, in 6 short harvests, as Max said, food
Mhm.
prices will be 4 times higher than they are. And that is from 2022. Only 6 harvests away. And so you have helped them show the importance of using technology and data to show the breakdown and the pain, actually, of what's happening in the earth's soil. And
Mhm.
you can make that complicated and scientific, but I think this is why emotional storytelling is so important, because you created a way for him to tell that story that makes sense, right? That's human.
Exactly. I'm so glad that you said that. You didn't mention it. I'm glad you were
Well,
putting that in
he
now.
probably shouldn't have. Yeah, yeah. And I think, as you were, like you said, like, it's a complicated, very short attention span world out there. And what have you, I guess, in that terms, what have you found to be the most successful part of what you're creating here with the DEFM agency? Rosa, have you always been what you consider a storyteller, or is this something you've learned over time?
I mean, I think it's a mixture of both. If I have to choose, I would say it's something that comes with experience. Definitely.
Okay.
When I look at, like studying and like learning about the ins and outs, yes, okay, it helps, Obviously, we're also like born to like have some talents, right? We're creative, or we're more logical, or we have these
Yeah.
kind of hobbies, or whatever that might be. So that
Yeah.
potentially, maybe I have a fundament that, is prone to be a storyteller. But I do think with the experience in my life that make these stories unique. When I look at the stories I wrote 2, 3 years ago, also for Constella, it's no comparison to now. And I hope in the next 3, 4 years, it's going to even be better. So I think it's a work in progress, and I can't wait to get older. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love being old. It's great. You're going to love it. I think you do. I think experience does play a lot. I think that I love that your awareness. I love your awareness around your whole journey as a person. Like, no, I wasn't always a storyteller, but of course, every classic writer says what Hemingway said. You can't be a writer and not have experiences. Like, the idea is an experience informs you, it changes who you are, it shapes you, it gives you an opinion, it gives you a perspective. And I I struggle sometimes and I think our producer, who's in the Rotterdam, the best city in the Netherlands, I'll just say that, whoop whoop, is, he talks a lot about, like, he's also a storyteller himself, obviously, he does podcasts and a lot of other things with companies. But how do you get through this corporate, like, gooky stuff in the front, to break through to that one
Mhm.
person that's going to hear you, to show them, look, people don't want to be marketed to. They don't. People don't want to be told what to do. They want to feel connected to you. And
Mhm.
as the world gets more violent, more disenfranchised with each other, the only thing that's going to keep companies going is its connection to people, its customers, which is story.
Yes, agreed. I mean, that's a good question. I have so many thoughts in my head here. First of all,
Yeah.
I think we should start with
Let them all
companies.
out. Let them all out.
I
Yeah.
will, definitely. But like when you look at companies right now, I think lots of them are thinking, okay, we have a product, we're going to make money, and that equals community. As you say, like connection, that's the other way around. Like the end product needs to be money and not community. Something like that needs to start way before even a product is on the market, because people also were there beforehand. They had needs and passions beforehand, and now you're coming up with your product. So I do believe in order to break through all of that is changing the equation, starting internally with founders or executive teams, or however these teams are all called, to start thinking differently about the product and who they are, and maybe discover themselves through that as well. Plus asking the right question to your audience way beforehand, like when you do your product discovery, when you do like your, okay, what are we going to do next? It's not only about like creating an ideal customer profile and putting in 3 bullet points. That's not enough. Like, what the hell is that? Sorry. I mean, I always
no, you
wonder.
can use yeah, no, I do too. I'm with you, sister. I'm right there with you. I always wonder. And I know that like a lot of people that listen to this podcast are in tech, like they're in this kind of market from end to end. And personally, I think people are fatigued by it. I was just on a call that was a discovery, and it was actually great. And as these guys were
Mhm,
talking, you could feel like the shift away. But I could also hear that, and I love to call this, Rosa, programming, because everybody is programmed. We're programmed to think a
mhm.
certain way about a person. We're programmed to think a certain way. Joe Dispenza wrote about this a long time ago as a neuroscientist, and how to change who you are, how to I can't remember the name of the book exactly, but the idea is like, we're just programmed. If you could break your programming, then you can do something differently. Like, why do you have to be this way? And I think your point of like these product guys who start like with these personas, it's not the way. Like, how does this impact
Mhm.
somebody? How does this change a world problem?
Exactly. 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 And I do believe like a lot of people are
Because we
just
have a lot
about
of
their
problems out
product and
there.
their vision. Oh my God, sorry, Jennifer.
Yeah, I agree.
We will.
I agree. No, I agree. It's okay.
So
We'll
yeah, and
figure
it,
it
it,
out.
it
We'll
annoys
figure
me,
this part out.
like I have to say.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, it doesn't. I think it's okay for it to annoy you. I think you can't make change in a system, right? If you're not going to be annoyed and speak up and speak out. I don't think it's possible. I hear that a lot. I get a lot from people. They're like, we just want to, let's just do a press release. I'm like, nobody cares. Like, nobody.
Exactly.
As also 13-year tech journalist, I can tell you, I don't get if I get a press release, I just dump it. I don't care. I don't want it. It doesn't help me because I know it's been run through legal and there's a ton of marketing lingo in there, and it does not tell me a story. And I really wish companies, I like to say PR is dead, long live PR, because there, I think that content and story, and I also begin to think content's a dirty word and I don't like it either. But
It's
story
overused.
to me is the very and my whole point is like, you're telling stories. Your whole thing about Defum is your storytelling. You're helping people get to the heart of what that story is. And that is like my whole premise for our company. Storyology is the same way, but it's also how I work as a journalist.
Hmm. No, I see your point.
Where is the effing story? Where's the effing story?
Exactly. No,
uh
you're right.
yeah. Yeah, I guess my other question for you, I've been curious to ask you, is once you've created this company, and bravo, by the way, and you have this great client that you've been working with over time, another bravo, how do you see yourself changing, or the agency changing, as you continue to see the success from your client that you have right now?
You mean how my company could like change and depending
Yeah.
on how I extend my
Or
portfolio?
grow or
I mean,
evolve. I mean, is that something? Ah, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. But to be honest, my vision is something that is that needs to kind of be funded. I've tried to be realistic about that. I would like to, first of all, help companies to achieve something and evolve, I guess, like be flexible about how the agency is gonna be purposed. I don't know. I
Yeah.
wanna listen to the market and see who actually wants to have my story than the other way around. I think that's
Mhm.
important to me at least. But all in all, it needs to kind of fund my idea of perhaps creating a, let's say, media powerhouse that has just like this idea about focusing only on emotions and how has this overarching power and how it connects everything. So maybe, create also reports, or as you do, podcasts. You can see, Jennifer, we're both kind of the same person, basically.
I love it.
So
We
yeah.
are kind of the same person, Rosa. I may take up boxing now. I'm pretty sure I'd be good at it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I love how you're thinking, because I had a company I sold in 2014. This is not podcast is not about me, but what you just said, I think we are the same person. It came around when the word content didn't even exist. User generated content wasn't even a term. And it was the perfect storm, really. It was the time when people were just going online, companies were getting online, magazines were like, well, how do we get online? And so there was nobody that was creating, what we would call content and story today. That's how I got started. So rode that wave, sold that company, and did a lot of consulting work on my own, and then restarted this company. And again, I think we're at the perfect storm right here, right now. You are at the perfect storm. We're at the perfect storm of what you just said. How do you take this to the next level in terms of, let's talk about emotional branding? I'm not talking about psychologists. I'm not talking about a bunch of people giving you some data points around. Of course, data informs things, but why can't we change what's happening in the industry? That's what I'd like to ask you. This industry is busted. I think PR is broken. I think PR agencies don't listen. I think that they still think, yeah, we tell stories. No, you effing don't. Like, you guys still push the same thing. How many pieces of coverage do I get? It doesn't matter, because also that's not how it works. And I want to know, how can we change this industry? Because I had someone tell me recently, big agency, will not say a name, very friendly, known them for a long time. They're in London. And he said, oh my God, I love what you're doing. I love it. This is so great. I want to pass you around this agency. We can use you, because I don't understand your business model. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're not charging by the hour. You've bundled everything into these. We do story credits, basically, like, what kind of story do you want? It's long, short, like, here's a credit, you buy credits. And he said, and I quote, this actually validates every single thing you do, whereas agencies don't know how to measure. That's why they just keep charging these clunky numbers. And that's why people say, I don't know, it's got to be cheaper, because they don't put any value. He said, but you've actually shown, I can buy 75 credits and you could do this many things or this many things. It values the story, right? And he said, but people don't get that. He said, it's too advanced. We're too stuck in our ways. And I'm like, oh.
You can't be serious. I think it's the other way around.
Yeah,
I think it's brilliant.
He said that.
I mean, Jennifer,
but
I
he
have to tell you.
recognizes.
I have to interrupt you here, because I feel like I think it's a brilliant idea to do that, because it is about playing, In the end, you give people these credits and you can play with it, and they can make their own decisions.
Don't steal it.
No, I'm not stealing it. Don't worry.
Rosa, it's really about you, but I love that, because I mean, you are in the same business. The same business is also, how do we get people to value what we do instead of devalue it? Because I'm pretty sure you'd never ask a CTO to work for nothing, or devalue the contribution that a CTO would make to a product or the technological roadmap for a company, right? But yet for somebody that's a storyteller, or you call yourself inbound marketing, like, they're like, oh, I got to spend this money. Bleh. They don't value it. They know they need it, but needing something and wanting something are two different things.
Correct. Good question. I mean, I have two ways we could go with that. Like, the first one would be to say, I mean, what I do and what I realize is just important to kind of always bring in revenue-driven aspects, if I like it or not. Yeah, to not only tell a story, but tell a second story parallel to this, to explain why this is all going to work, quantify it, even though I don't like that either. And then, come to a conclusion and see what's going to happen. I think there's still lots of risk if you're going to make that assessment, even though that's still here a very secure way of, like, communicating, handling it, or sending your proposal. But yeah, we're still like very much, I don't know, dependent on the opinion of people and what they think. Like, it's like, math is clear, 1 + 1 = 2. And, a story everyone has their opinion on it. So I guess that's this risk that's always going to remain. I do believe, because you also said and mentioned AI. there is a big opportunity, to be honest, with AI. It is
Yeah.
something where I feel like as society, we conditioned us so much into, some kind of validation theories, what's right or wrong, what's culture and what's not. And I think AI can help us come back to our senses and realize that intuition and all of that is something that can help us, and AI I think can help us with that. That's it, and bridge that what we
What
right now
I
lost, I
love, that is
guess.
the first, okay, what, that is the first time, that is brilliant. I have never heard that. That is a beautiful way. AI can help us get back to basically our humanity, if you will. Were you taking us in
Yes,
that direction?
yes,
Um, I love that. I love that fact that, yeah, man, where you just dropped a bomb, mic drop. That's a mic drop in this podcast right there. Can AI bring us back to our humanity? And actually, I agree with you because, you know, we that I'm not afraid of AI in terms of taking my job away because I know that my experience, we go back to what you said earlier, and my skill with writing, AI will never be able to do that. It will never be able
correct.
to sound, it'll never be able to be my perspective or my passion. You can definitely tell the clients that I work for in some of the pieces that I ghostwrite for CEOs. Like you can 100% when you find out I'm writing for them, you're like, oh yeah, that's totally you. And I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm in there. But but your idea of like you're gonna take this idea of AI and allow it to bring back some of our humanity. We're going to need that in the future, that humanity.
Of course.
And this is why I
Hmm.
think what you're doing is critical. What you're doing is not, we got to continue, you have got to continue to challenge that system. And maybe you'll get little less away from having to do that secondary storyline about always showing the value. People just realize straight out, like, we need this to survive.
Exactly. To survive is exactly the point, and maybe also from their own, understanding from their information they're retrieving and reading. Oh, I've read about that. That sounds interesting. We need that for our company.
Yes.
That would be
Yes.
the ideal case.
Yeah.
I really do hope we're getting there. I just feel it. I can't explain it, but I feel we will. Because, we're just full, every person has just a certain capacity, and then they're in need to just shut off or shut it down and just come back to the basic, if it's gardening, boxing, or reading a new story. Who knows?
Oh my God, Rosa, that is the perfect way to close out this podcast. You just took it back to the beginning. You talked about getting back to our humanity and all of these things. I love that you are here in this world to talk about that and bring your experiences in such an open way. So thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of Tiny Little Victories.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me. It was great.
Okay, well, that is the end of this episode with Rosa Schmidt, and I hope you enjoyed listening to us literally talk about everything and emotions and what people are doing and why can't they do better. And yeah, I feel like sometimes it's a little bit of a soapbox, but hey, what else are you going to do today if not get on a soapbox, right? So I'd like to thank you all for listening. I'd love, love, love to give you all a big hug, and thank you so much for commenting and sharing tiny little victories on our social channels on tiny_little_V's on LinkedIn and Instagram. Wow. I mean, lately we're getting a lot of comments and they've just been incredible. So thank you for taking the time. I know we're all really busy. I know we're pulled in a million different directions, but the sharing and caring and love, I can feel it. I feel it all the way through this microphone. So stick around for another episode in 2 weeks on Tiny Little Victories.